And you're live.
Happy post-Sabbath penumbra, everybody. Sunday evening, too. And it's Sunday, February 16th, the sixth Sunday in Ordinary Time. And as I understand it, in the house tonight, we have, of course, Joe, right? How's it going, Joe?
Yeah, dude.
And do you have a
Going
special
good.
do you have a special guest there with you, Joe?
I do. His name is Ryan Budd. Say hello, Ryan.
Oh,
Hello.
everybody, say hello, Ryan. Yell out.
He did.
Let me
Did you
hear it
not
again.
hear him? You want to hear it again?
Hello.
Ooh, I heard him quite well. Can the good people see Ryan at all?
Yeah, they should be able to. We're just gonna hang out in the corner here for
Cool.
the
Just sit
stream,
down in the
but
corner.
we'll be here.
So some of you may have remember that I said there are three men helping me in this project. One is Dr. Theodore Rebard from the University of St. Thomas, who studied Thomism under Mr. Peter Kreeft and who taught me when I was in the University of St. Thomas.
What's today's?
And Mr. Mark McNeil, who has a master's in theology, a master's in philosophy, and a master's in sacred scripture. And then also a Mr. Ryan Budd, who writes books with Scott Hahn and has also written his own book. What is the name of that book? Joe, not Ryan, Joe.
Are you gonna ask me? It's Salvation Stories.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Ryan Budd, who wrote Salvation Stories, is in the house with us and also helping me in this project from time to time. Isn't that right, Mr. Ryan?
He says he's asking
Yes.
you because we can't
Yes,
hear.
that's right.
But the
I
answer
can
is
hear.
yes.
I can hear.
You can hear now. Okay, good.
He can hear?
Apparently, he hasn't heard your question yet, though.
It's all right. Well, this is kind of exciting. This is the first time we've had a guest.
Yeah, we're working out some hiccups on making this work, but
Some kinks
we
and
will.
some wrinkles in this
Right.
situation. It's to be expected. This, the Starship Enterprise, well, the galleon, the beavers on the galleon
Yeah, I'm about
sometimes.
10 seconds behind here.
Yeah.
When the galleons first set out, the beavers were not as as great helmsmen as they are now. That's just the simple fact of the matter. Can't be helped. Hey Joe, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, you can ask me a question.
How are you doing this post Sabbath evening too, Sunday evening too? Did you have any beverages of an interesting sort today?
No bevs.
Well,
Uh, we're not beving. We're doing other things, but we're not beving.
gotcha. Did you have any steak?
No, but my wife made a delicious chicken, some
Mm,
good sauce. To describe it would be disappointing, but it was really good.
nice. I had steak because it's the easiest, and I had steak last night, and then reserved some for today, for this morning, and then of course I have wine throughout the day, and then I have a little bourbon right now. This is just a common, boring Evan Williams.
Mm.
But this morning I had shakshasa.
What is shikshasha? That sounds weird.
Shakshasa. Well, it's kind of a Middle Eastern. I think in Turkey, sometimes in some places in the Middle East, it's a dish. Can be had for breakfast, but also can be had anytime, really. But essentially, I've had it a long time ago, and I haven't had it for a while. And this place I'm staying at, had an extra bell pepper in the fridge that needed to be used. And also, there's eggs aplenty because there's chickens here on the property. So I went to the store and purchased a 28-ounce thing of peeled tomatoes. And shikshasa is basically you take those peeled tomatoes, dump them into the cast iron skillet or whatever, with some spices. You got some cumin, you got some chili powder, got some this and that, garlic, onion, and then it gets to bubbling. And once that stuff starts bubbling and smooths out, and those tomatoes break up into a nice tomato sauce, thick tomato sauce with the caramelized onions and bell pepper in there, then you crack some eggs into it, 6 of them, and you just let them sit and float in that until they cook. Oh yeah, with all the spices and the garlic and so good. I made shikshasha this morning. Haven't had it in a while, and it was wonderful. But it was a bit of a disappointment because I was not able to go to Mass again or Divine Liturgy.
You were stuck?
I was stuck yet again.
That's a bummer.
We had a blast of winter rain, and then the temperature started dropping. But then it turned into a very heavy snow, which was low visibility, and the warning on the app says don't go out, and it's slippery on these roads, as you know. So yet again, I don't get to go to Divine Liturgy, don't get to see the nuns, and don't get to receive the Lord in the Eucharist. It's kind of if it wasn't so beautiful here, up on this higher floor, snow falling all around me, it's like a sheet, it's like a mystical sheet of white all around me. I'm in the what are those things you shake up? Globe. What's it called?
Snow globe?
Snow globe. Sitting in a snow globe, having beautiful food. Got the little animals running around. Got a beautiful house that looks like the Shire. This place really looks like a hobbit hole. Man, it was really, really beautiful. And of course, had a little hot tubbing today also in the 25-degree weather. So there's some consolations, is all I'm saying, Joe, from not being
It sounds
able to,
epic.
not being able to go to
Yeah.
Divine Liturgy. Oh, not
Yeah,
only that, look, I went out and bought some chocolates.
Oh.
Look at those.
Oh, those are great. I remember having those.
Yeah, they're assorted truffles. But the cool thing is there's 8 of them. And I think I have 8 Sundays here in this place. So I have 1 truffle for every Sunday.
Perfect. That's good.
My Sabbath desserts are more modest these days. I remember when I first started doing this Sabbath thing, like taking it serious and doing it more like our brother Yaakov does. I'm serious. Like 4 or 5 years ago or whatever it was, my Sabbath, I think I might have told you this before, but I would make like a box cake and eat like half of it or more. Who did somebody just leave? I just heard the little.
Oh wait, I just had an idea. You know what I'm gonna do?
Futuristic. What are you gonna do, Joe?
We're trying to fix this so Ryan can hear it. I'll just do the thing I'm trying to get him to do because my thing will probably work because it's worked before. Hold on, we're gonna do a little technical shuffling around here. Why don't you talk about something?
Why don't I talk
really
about
important?
Summa Theologica?
Learn it or fancy-ish.
Well, don't do that because I'm not ready to do slides yet. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. You're not ready. All right. So I have to vamp. I have to vamp.
Yeah. Dance,
oh
monkey.
my God.
Get on there.
You know, that's kind of fun. I haven't vamped in a while. I haven't had to vamp since Sideshow Tramps days, or at least Craig Kinsey's show days. So yeah, let's vamp. Well, I will say something. I had something I wanted to talk about here about the snow howling and the wind out. Can you hear though, Joe? Are you off doing something else? He can't even hear. We're
if
all
you're talking
alone.
to me, I'm trying to fix something, so I can't hear you right now, but I will be able to hear you soon.
Okay, fine. Well, it just doesn't. It feels like I'm talking to a camera now, but whatever. The snow howling and the wind and the difficulty in the storm outside is a setup for next week. You guys tune in next week because the temperatures are dropping down to the single digits, and if this place freezes out here, I'm going to have a lot of stories of Three Stooges, freaking Keystone Cops, discombobulated craziness of trying to get up that hill and get these animals fed. And I hope it's funny and not really serious, because it could suddenly get serious. So tune in this coming week and see how things go in this freezing weather. Let's see, part 2. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about, we're ending up today, Article 3, and going into question 5. Goodness in general is question 5. So that's going to be a interesting question, because the term, as I said before, goodness or good is very difficult to define. So we're going to have to see how Thomas does in tackling the thorny problem of defining the word good. So Joe, are we anywhere near ready? If not, I'm going to say one more thing, and then I'm going to hit the Summa, no matter what they say. I want to remember Father Brent's beautiful explanation of the Summa, where he says it's a meditation on the presence of God. It starts off with God himself and the nature of God, that we can't know and can't understand, but what can we get to in explaining what God is not, and understanding the nature of his presence without fully being able to understand his essence. And then the second part of the Summa goes into the presence of God in humanity, in our life on earth, and how this crazy world works, but the presence of God in that. The third part, we're moving into the presence of God in Christ and how that particular nature works, the divine nature uniting with the human nature. And then the church and the sacraments and how God works in channeling his grace out into the visible world. And then finally, the consuming of all of humanity back into the deity. This epic hero's tale, this journey of humanity out from God into the chaos, into the moving and order, in the Christic salvation, the hero coming to save his bride, to redeem his bride, and then bring her back to the kingdom in this final consummation. That's the epic story told in the Summa. And Father Brent, James Brent, I think, said it's all a meditation on the presence of God, which in our brother Yaakov, the Hebrew word would be Shekhinah, or as some in the Christian world call Shekinah. The Shekhinah is the female presence of God. The Shekhinah rested over Israel when they were in the desert. That's what the Feast of Tabernacles, Shavuot, not Shavuot, that's Pentecost, the Feast of Sukkot, out in the desert. The glory cloud, the Shekinah presence of God resting over the people of Israel, keeping them from the heat. This is the presence of God in our lives, and it can become more and more intense depending upon how we choose to live our lives. Joe, are you back at all?
Yeah, we're ready, dude. We can hear everything. It's good.
Sweet. All right, now remember this page, Ryan, you picked a great day to come because it's not even a full half page. The back of this page is completely empty.
I'm a famous slacker, so that's wonderful to hear.
Perfection. Me too. And I saw you smoking a cigar earlier before we started, and I can't wait to finish this page and go smoke my pipe and meditate on these things. I will say, I have noticed that since we've started this, I don't know about you, Joe, because I have to have my head in it probably more than the average person that's watching, because I meet with Mark McNeil, we do a Zoom talk, we talk about the question, and we just do a general talk about the whole question. And then each day in the afternoon, I study the page that's going to be the next day. And then that morning, after morning prayer, I study that page again. So I'm like in it a lot, but I have noticed that it is starting to order my thoughts more and take over my thoughts, sort of like what I'm blanking on his name again, who said that he's doing syllogisms. What is his name? Said he it's not Keith, it's the guy who said he's
Looking for Mike's name?
Micah, right? Micah,
yeah.
isn't it Micah? Yeah.
Yeah.
Who said he's realizing or was it Michael?
No,
Micah. Yeah. He
Yeah.
said he's realizing he's thinking about it throughout the day. And that's the whole purpose of this, guys. That's why it's the Daily Summa. The purpose of this is not for us to go deep and understand every bit of St. Thomas's arguments and milk each page to the depths, because you can't. And even if you did, it's only milk. This is not meat, as Thomas clearly says in the prologue. The purpose of this is for brothers to come together in unity, and instead of discussing Netflix and sports and the news, to discuss the good news of Christ's presence, God's presence in our life in the Summa. So that's what we're doing today. And I figure that we should just go ahead and start it. And you know what I'm going to do, fellas?
Actually,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to stop you because we got a cool little message from our new friend in locals. And I want to play it for you live right now.
Oh, you're putting a spraying one on me. Go for it, Joe.
Yeah, dude. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready for anything, really.
And of course, Ryan, you're open. You're welcome to respond to this as well if you want.
Okay, so we're watching Daily
Here, I'm
Summa,
gonna pop
and we
this up
have
here.
blah 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 blah. We're at 38 minutes 17 seconds. So that is the quote that's on the screen.
Wow.
And it seems like
I've actually seen this one.
actuality, the way Thomas uses it in here, is not about just reality, but being in a state of action, a state of taking action. For example, when you talk about God's being, you say he's pure act. And then that use of act is the root form of this kind of actual. So it seems maybe even like now our current use of the word actual to mean real derives from actual meaning in a condition of action, in a state of action, as opposed to being in a state of potential action or just like inertia. For example, a rock is inert compared to a cat, which can take some actions, and a cat can take fewer actions than a human, and a human who is in a state of sin is pushed around by his passions and is really kind of like an object compared to a human who is free from his sins and is more acting upon things than being acted upon by them. So a human who is perfect is like God, pure act. He is in no way an object in proportion to passions that are beating him around. Yeah, I think that's cool. I just wanted to get it.
Yeah,
out
dude. All right, I'm going to take it.
I forget.
So, Joe,
Yeah, dude.
so Mike sent me this, and I responded in text, but this is good to be able to respond in live video.
Yeah, that's
to
why.
make some clarifications. Very good, Joe. You're just like being amazing all the time, you know?
Joe's good at that.
I've been trying to tell everybody that this is how I am. I'm just amazing all the time, and they don't understand, you know?
Okay, so who is the scientist, pop quiz, who's the scientist that talked about inertia, that which is in motion will remain in motion in the straight unless acted upon by an equal or opposite force? Ryan? Joe?
Oh, that would be Sir Isaac Newton.
Mr. Isaac Newton. Often when people read Thomas, they read his words about motion or motoi in the way that you would hear Isaac Newton's, but it's a different kind of motion. Thomas is talking about two cue balls clicking, but that's not the fullness of what he means by motion. That's a part of motion. Thomas means any kind of change from potency to act, just like you have a flower unfolding. It's not moving from one place to another, but it's moving from a bud, Ryan, to a full flower. Or the classic example, the caterpillar moving from a caterpillar to a butterfly. That's a movement. It's any kind of change. Me moving from a teenager to an adult to an old man. That's movement. That's moving from the potential to be an old man, because I could have died. Oh, I think that somebody's scratching at the door. I could have died as a young man and not made it to this place right now. That movement could have been stopped. Think of, and this is just a metaphor, but think of movement like the Brandenburg Concertos, Bach's Brandenburg Concertos. There is I'm going to answer this door. The dog wants to join us. Boy, we have a crazy show tonight. We're going full David Letterman. Come on, dog. Come join the stream. Come here. Daisy, come here.
We have a Michael Elias in the chat as well.
Okay, come here, Daisy.
And when you're ready, I'd like to chime in on this.
Sure.
As well.
So movement is what we're talking about. You have to keep in mind Aristotle's idea of hylomorphism, that things are morphing and changing, that matter is in pure potentiality. As we discussed earlier, it's very curious and amazing that the language that Aristotle used is very similar to what we found out about quantum mechanics in this era, that the field is in potency, and until you view it, it collapses into act. And but Aristotle and Thomas, here we go. I caught the dog. Aristotle and Thomas would use the term reduced. Something is reduced into act. So that stone that Elias talked about, baby, are you not one to know here? How you doing? She's in complete potency and complete act. That stone, that was sitting in the driveway, that stone is in act. Act isn't just movement like a cat. The stone could have been there or could not have been there. But the stone did, whether it's igneous or metamorphic or sedimentary rock, whatever causes and effects led to that stone being actualized. Even though it's sitting there still, just like Daisy Doodle, even though it's sitting there in your driveway still, it is still actualized. It's actually there. It might not have been there. It could have done something else. And certainly the material that makes that stone could have been morphed into something else. So when you hear the word act, don't just think of something moving like a cat, but think of something being actualized. Okay, the dog's now bored, of course. She doesn't like Summa Theologia. You know what? I'm just going to leave you there, dog. So anyway, that's the important point to me. And also, the last thing I said to Mike was realize, like, if you have stones in your driveway, that stone is actualized. It's there, but it's also there for an end. It's there for a final cause. Its final cause is to be in your driveway, to make your driving in and out easier so that it doesn't become muddy and put ruts in your driveway and have sinkholes and mud. But you put rocks in your driveway to keep it more stable. And that's the end goal. That's the telos of that rock. So the rock is actualized, it is in act, and it is there for an end. Okay, Ryan Budd, what you got, my friend?
So you provided a really nice on-ramp here. So when I was
Like
studying
a driveway.
under Dr. John Love at Mount St. Mary's, we were encouraged to think about the idea of motion. Whenever we saw the word motion, we would think change.
Yeah, exactly.
This Newtonian fusion, because nothing against Newton. That's not Thomas and Aristotle we're talking about. However, one of the reasons why Thomas and Aristotle have a better word than Newton does, as opposed to change, is precisely because when things change, they change for a purpose. They move toward the end.
Yeah.
And especially ancient language, we still do this, but ancient language in particular is very visual, very visceral. So discussing change, you move toward the end as if you were going from point A to point B. So the flower kind of does move from one place to the other. It moves further along the path of its existence toward its end, which is to propagate itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also it's important to note, Ryan, you could speak to this better than I. In this translation, it says regarding Thomas's fifth way that everything moves designedly, but the Latin is more the root of purposefully. I mean, it's fine to put the word design in there. That's kind of a buzzword nowadays with intelligent design and everything, but that's fine. But Thomas's idea, and it's the same, but design is more like interior to the efficient cause, whereas purpose is more teleologically aimed kind of word.
That's right. That's right.
But everything is purposeful. Kavrusa, it's so good to talk to you. Like knowing you're there, I'm just like, it's like I can talk like we're talking at Chesterton's, and it's very nice.
Well, I think we're ready to probably start this page, but before we start it, I just want to throw out there.
Yeah.
If you join the locals, you can also have your little question featured on our channel. And
that's a good point.
One of the few things
we're
not right now before we have other content going on, but
we're not going to turn the page today. So let's just say that in honor of Mike and Leah, today's Summa page is sponsored by High Casual.
High Gothic Casual. You almost
High Gothic Casual. Dude, it's a bourbon night. It's Sunday evening too. It's Sabbath evening too.
Very good.
Okay, let's just read through this thing, man. We're gonna get out of here. If this thing goes an hour with a short page, that's embarrassing. But it could with Ryan in the house because I'm just so excited to be able to hear Ryan's voice and chat with him. All right, I'm gonna take it weirdly from the very beginning, right in the middle of a sentence. C in non-univocal agents. Period. Next sentence. 4. Since every agent reproduces itself so far as it is an agent, and everything acts according to the manner of its form, the effect must in some way resemble the form of the agent. If therefore the agent is contained in the same species as its effect, there will be a likeness in form between that which makes and that which is made, according to the same formality of the species, as man produces man. That's a big, long Thomas philosophical thing that's saying if a cause produces an effect and it's of the same species, it's going to be like it. A man makes a man, it's going to be like a man. The dog makes a dog, it's going to look like a dog. The forms are going to be similar. If, however, the agent and its effect are not contained in the same species, there will be a likeness, but not according to the formality of the same species. But not according to formality of the same species, as things generated by the sun's heat may be in some sort spoken of as like the sun, not as though they received the form of the sun in its specific likeness, but in its generic likeness. All right, well, we talked about this before in my curiosity as to whether there's getting in there some of the Aristotelian idea that the heavenly bodies were made of different stuff, because it's saying that the sun is producing like species. Now, I think it was Dr. Rebard who said, no, he's talking about the rays and the heat. The rays and the heat have a likeness to the sun. But then it says different forms. And or Thomas says, not as though they received the form of the sun in its specific likeness, but in generic likeness. So, and I've heard other teachers say that what Thomas is saying is that which the sun produces, the plants, the movement of the ocean along with the moon and these kind of things, the whole planetary system, is a likeness unto the sun in some way. But to me, that seems like it almost, if that's what he's saying, it seems to me that water would be a better metaphor, because water does fall and we drink the water, and taking that matter within ourselves in the form of water, we change it into the form of Craig or the form of Ryan Budd. But we still have water within ourselves, so we seem more water-like. But either way, it's a distant metaphor to me. Ryan, would you like to address that? Do you have any thoughts on that? Especially the thing about the sun, being, because you know what I'm talking about, Aristotle and the boys, they thought that the heavenly bodies were of different stuff.
They did think that. I don't know exactly.
That's the best possible
the closest thing that pops into my head has to do with heat. As those of us who've done outdoor labor figured out, the longer you hang out in the sun, the more you become like the sun, in the sense that you overheat and you might even burn. And the sun can start fires if it's appropriately channeled, and if things are dry enough, you can get a fire started, which partakes of the sun's burningness.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But the generic likeness is a term of art that I haven't had time to ponder what he might mean by that, because that's not exactly what he means. But the closest analogy I can think of is of heat.
Do you have the Summa in front of you?
Yes.
What does he say in Latin for that?
Where are we?
Let's see.
Okay, I see it. Yep. Si ergo agens sit contentum iniatum specie cum suo effectu, with its effect, erit similitudo inter faciens et factum, the doer and the done upon, in forma, secundum ianum rationem speciei, according to the ratio of its species, which is what it says.
The thinking of its species? The thinking?
The ratio of its species. In the English, that is rendered as the formality.
Really?
Ratio is a Thomistic term of art.
What's the difference between fides et ratio? Is it the same word? Faith and reason?
Ratio in when John Paul II is talking about it, he's talking about it as reason, specifically, and
But is it the same word?
It is the same word. Thomas has a richer meaning.
Interesting.
Thomas has a richer meaning, which is closer to the Greek word logos, that has a lot more going on than simply our term reason today.
Yeah. Okay, that's something I'll be pondering over my pipe tonight. I did not know it was ratio. That's amazing. Form, logos. The logos is the preeminent or archetypical ratio or form.
And by trying to translate it as formality, the Dominican fathers are trying to get to the sense that, they're dead, I can't ask them, but I think they're trying to get to the sense that the thing that's made according to the ratio of the species has its same end as well, not just its makeup.
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
man
And
and the
that would
woman get
also
together and they make a baby. That baby is also destined for eternal life with God, not just the parents.
Yeah, and that also, using the term in that way, also folds into it the efficient cause, because the efficient cause has the telos in mind. That's the whole point of the fifth way of Thomas, that things are purposeful, and they're purposeful because there's an efficient cause. Just like Michelangelo making the statue, the end is the statue, but it can only work if he has the statue in mind at the beginning, the efficient cause. That's very interesting, dude. All right, back to punk rock Summa. I was talking to White Bread, and I was like trying to explain to him what we're doing here, and with this Daily Summa thing. And I was talking about David Letterman and how he played into how the Sideshow Tramps and I did my shows and meta stuff and bringing things in like bringing the dog in and letting the chaos just flow. And that's David Letterman was kind of the pioneer of that, bringing that into this. And then White Bread was like, well, why don't you have a band in it? I was like, no. We're wanting the spirit of that. What I'm trying to do, and I've never said this before, I was waiting for the right time to say it, but I'll just say it with Brian Budd in there, and I'll just drop it and then leave it alone, and we'll come back to it later. I'm wanting to bring a little Diogenes into the Plato, Aristotle, Thomas conversation. I think we need a little more Diogenes in the church. That's all I'm saying. Everybody, when they talk philosophy, they contrast Plato and Aristotle. I think we need a little more Diogenes. And if you ask me, which you are, because this is craigkinsey.locals.com. If you ask me, Thomas had a little more Diogenes in him than your average Thomas teacher in the college. And here's what I mean by that. As I said before, Bishop Barron in his video on Thomas talks about them studying in the school of Paris, sitting on bales of straw, the teachers shouting out the window. They're in the Quatre de Latin, the Latin quarter, speaking vulgar Latin in Paris. And Thomas is a Dominican, so he's mendicant, and it's a new order, so nobody really knows what it's kind of new, and these people are weirdos. And if he's a mendicant, he's been walking around 800 years ago without air conditioning, so he stinks. So he's sitting on bales of straw in the Latin seedy quarter of town, talking with the boys, with teachers shouting out the window. They're studying Aristotle, which popes before them had said is banned. You shouldn't speak about Aristotle. It's not good. It's bad. It's dangerous. They're sitting there talking about dangerous Aristotle in the seedy quarter of town. That's what I'm talking about. That's Thomas Aquinas. I'm trying to bring the real Thomas Aquinas here with punk rock Summa and the boys sitting around in the cigar lounge talking about the things of God, not the weird God that I see in church. And I don't mean in church, I mean the way people act culturally. Not this weird like way of talking about God, but the actual seedy, sweaty, potency-filled scrotum of a true seminal conversation about God. That's what I'm interested in. Not interested in cute religion land. All right, Let's go. Therefore, if there's an agent not contained in any genus, its effect will still more distinctly reproduce the form of the agent, not, that is, so as to participate in the likeness of the agent's form according to the same specific or generic formality, but only according to some sort of analogy, as existence is common to all. In this way, all created things, so far as they are beings, are like God as the first and universal principle of all being. This is a long philosophical discussion of saying the reason why that in the first question, Thomas asks, do we use metaphors in theology? And remember, I made a big deal about that with joking about, oh, why are we bringing English class into this all of a sudden? It's very important. It's almost on every page of the Summa throughout that the reason we talk about metaphors is because God is ipsum esse, the pure act of being. And so anytime we talk about a likeness between humanity and God, we're talking an analogy and metaphor, and that you can never have a full likeness to God. But we share in his being, we participate in being, and then he's not going to go on and talk about how we are particularly like. He does quote in the I answer that, or no, on the contrary, he says, let us make man in our own image. But you'll notice he doesn't go into detail on that. Why not? Well, the reason is because he goes in detail on that in part 2. To be continued, cliffhanger. He goes into detail about how we are made in the likeness of God in part 2. Right now, he's just trying to get over to us, to the students, to the beginners, to the rude intellects of the beginners, how we understand what God is not. All right, reply to objection 1. As Dionysius says, when Holy Writ declares that nothing is like God, it does not mean to deny all likeness to him. For the same things can be like and unlike to God, like according as they imitate him, as far as he, who is not perfectly imitable, can be imitated, unlike according as they fall short of their cause, not merely in intensity and remission, as that which is less white falls short of that which is more white, but because they are not in agreement specifically or generally. All right, this goes back to that whole Elvis analogy, that you can have a type of thing that's like Elvis. He's an Elvis imitator, or you can have just some Tom, Dick, or Harry try to sing an Elvis song, but it's not going to be just like Elvis, but you can still say that it's like Elvis because he's singing the same song and he's trying to do it in an Elvis kind of way. But nothing is perfectly Elvis. And so nothing is perfectly that transcendent divine being, but we still do share in aspects of what he is like. Think about God being perfectly strong. Think about God being perfectly intelligent. Think of God being perfectly tender. But that's all really one thing. He is his intelligence. He's tender because it's intelligent to be so. And to be tender is to be strong, because to be overly strong is to be not in your true relation to another. It's a sort of defense mechanism. So think of that, God's tenderness, his intelligence, his strength. Now divide that up and put those strengths that are actually one thing in different people. Perhaps you've known people who are more tender than intelligent. Perhaps you've known people who are more intelligent than tender. Perhaps you know people who are very strong, tough, but not very intelligent. Perhaps you know people who are strong and intelligent, not very tender. You get my point. These aspects of God, of the initial mold, the initial signet ring, the logos, are divided up in the shattered vessels and manifest themselves in us in greater or lesser ways. But they're all reflections of that one reality, which is beyond, which is ineffable and beyond our ability to fully grasp, the essence of God. And yet we can begin to grasp it in an intuitive, perhaps even you might say connatural way, an intuitive way, as we meditate on the reality that we see visibly represented before us. All right, reply to objection 2. God is not related to creatures as though belonging to a different genus, but as transcending every genus and as the principle of all genera. He's not in cause and effect land. God doesn't live in cause and effect land. if you remember, Joe, in that retreat, I talked about gaming, and I showed some of those early toys, like from the 1800s going into the 1900s. And then I showed modern representations of these same ideas. And I don't want to go into detail about it. I'm just reminding you about it, where I showed those toys where you can have something like a disc with a lot of images and things on it, little dots, and it looks like chaos. But when you spin it and the light hits it a certain way, it turns into a bunch of dolphins swimming in the water. You know what I'm talking about, Joe?
Yep.
Yep. So when you're not seeing it spin, it just looks like chaos. But when it starts spinning, you see the dolphins moving. That's a type of toy. Well, God has allowed these things to come into our world, not just so little kids can go, ooh, that's cute, but to show us something. Everything is manifesting the deity. And for God, chaos and order from the full divine perspective are the same thing. God knows exactly what each of those dots on that disc mean and how they connect together. So he can see both the tohu vavohu, he can see the without form and void, and also what that without form and void is when it's in motion, which is those dolphins moving. So for God, the point I'm trying to make is he doesn't live in cause and effect land. We live in cause and effect world, but he lives in the transcendent world. So these genre do not apply to him. He is wholly other. Reply to objection 3. Likeness of creatures to God is not affirmed on account of agreement in form according to the formality of the same genus or species, but solely according to analogy. It's a metaphor. We're repeating the same things over and over. Rejoice if it starts to get boring to you, because that means you're learning, and you can possibly one day hand it over and repeat it to others. Inasmuch as God is essential being, whereas other things are being by participation. We all participate in being, but God is pure being. So whatever you see in life is participating in that which God is perfectly and sustaining in his eternal existence. Okay, reply to objection 4. I'm trying to zip through this, and then we'll see if Ryan or you, Joe, have anything to say about it. Reply to objection 4. Although it may be admitted that creatures are in some sort like God, it must no wise be admitted that God is like creatures, because as Dionysius says, a mutual likeness may be found between things of the same order, but not between a cause and that which is caused. For we say that a statue, like King David from Michelangelo, is like a man, King David, but no, not conversely. We don't say that King David is like this statue. So also a creature can be spoken of as in some sort like God, but not that God is like a creature. Now we've ended that page. We are done with question 4. Tomorrow we go on to question 5, the goodness in general. I feel like that's going to be a tough hang. That might be a tough hang, expressing what goodness in general means. So what do you think, Ryan? You got to hang out at a live stream. I'd be happy for you to be at many more, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was
wonderful.
That was a joy. How far do we go? Let's see. How do we do on time?
43 minutes.
Oh yeah, we started at 15. Man, it's still 43 minutes. You know what I was thinking, Joe?
Well, it's my fault. I did a lot of stuff.
It is so your fault. And I wish that I could have said that before you admitted it. But yeah.
No, I'm not going to let you do that.
It was so because here's what my fantasy was. I thought you were doing D&D tonight, and that I was going to be flying alone. So what I was going to do is I was going to be like, hey guys, Joe's not here. So I'm just going to read through this real quick and make a couple comments and get out of here. So when he comes back and sees it, it's like 8 minutes long. That's what I was going to do.
Next week's D&D, so maybe then.
To mess with you. Well, next week we have a full page. But although next week we do just have that little intro part, which is shorter. So it's actually still kind of a shorter page. But anyway, let's get out of here. I'm going to go tend to this barking dog. And it looks like the family called me from Indonesia that there may be something happening on the farm that I need to check out.
Something catastrophic happened.
Yeah,
I
don't think so. I didn't.
Can't blame that one on me.
Cannot. No. Guys, hey, Ryan, Ryan, so good to have you.
Very good to be here.
I can't wait to get back to the shop and just sit there and conversa out and chat with you all, you and everyone in person.
This is wonderful what you're doing. I'm glad to be part of it.
Man, thank you. Thank you very much. All right, guys, remember, this is all straw. It matters nothing unless you meditate upon it like Our Lady. Roll it around, ponder it in your heart, and let that friction of meditation turn into fire, and that fire turn into the Holy Ghost moving you to become a better person and to grow into your eternal destiny of the kingdom of God and the deiform